Welcome back. You're watching our special show as we decode what the massive electoral victory of the Bharatiya Janata Party in the state elections means for the economy and for the markets. Let's just pay attention to what the Prime Minister had to say when he addressed the BJP at its headquarters on Sunday. He said, "I'm seeing a new India, the India that the youth dreams of, a new India that fulfills the aspirations of our women. The poor are saying, I want to progress and I seek the opportunity from you." That's what the Prime Minister had to say. Let's just take a look at what the BJP chief had to say, Amit Shah. The outcome has shown the faith the poor have reposed in Prime Minister Modi. And finally, from Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, we are seen as pro-poor, we are seen as economically a reformist and a sole defender of the nationalist constituency of the country. The poor have shifted towards the BJP in a big way. Manish Chokhani, if I could come to you now, does this indicate a change, a shift in the brand of economics that we've come to associate with Prime Minister Modi?
Yes, of course, he's doing the politically the most astute thing that the BJP typically was seen as right of center. But the way the other national party seems to have vacated the space at the center, the BJP is pretty much now occupying all the space between the CPM at one end and I guess the Shiv Sena at the other end. And it's what you would do if you were running the company as a marketing person. You want to be sitting bang in the center where there is really no competition. So I have no dispute. And like I said in the beginning, they're fundamentally changing the whole plumbing of the nation for the better, in my view, by telling the individual that you are now responsible for your life. Don't keep waiting for the government to, give you a dole or a subsidy. Get out there, and our job is to provide you with opportunities and make sure that it's equal opportunity out there and it's not held for.
But are they really getting away from that?
Are
they really getting away from that, Manish? No, the Soot Boot Ki Sarkar acronym may not stick to this government anymore. In fact, there's a very conscious, deliberate attempt to move as far away from that charge. But are they really moving away from what they claimed was the big monumental failure, the NREGS and so on and so forth? In fact, they may bring in a universal basic income scheme ahead of 2019.
Well, which is the right way to think of it, Shirin, because if you say at the one hand we do want labour reform, you must have a social security net. So I don't see these two as contradictory.
Philip, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Credit Suisse calling this a political turning point. What will it mean for the markets? I mean, we've seen the pop today, but in the short to medium term, what does it mean for the markets? What are you betting on?
Well, thanks for having me first. Again, I do believe that India is one of the more promising emerging markets out there structurally, and we do believe that the outcome of the elections may unlock further some of that potentially. Tactically, however, we're a bit more cautious. We do have a market that is quite expensive, trading at about 17.5 times earnings. We are looking at MSCI here. I do see that earnings momentum is already rolling over. Earnings growth is actually quite high. We do believe that the demonetization will have an impact on Q1 profitability, and as such, we're a bit more careful in the short run. We think we need first to see whether, with the Q1 reporting, whether corporations can actually pull through and what the impact is going to be from demonetization. But we do see better opportunities out there right now tactically than the Indian stock market.
Philip, thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. That's Philip Lissibach of Credit Suisse. But let's just very quickly take our viewers through the arithmetic in the Rajya Sabha, because that perhaps has been a bit of an issue as far as the government is concerned, but the arithmetic stands to change. As things currently stand, the Congress at 59, the BJP at 56, SP at 18, AIADMK at 13, TMC at 11, JDU at 10, and others at 77. Now, post the electoral result that we've seen, this picture is going to look different, with the BJP actually emerging as the single largest party. The BJP could stand to gain anywhere between 6 and 10 seats in the Rajya Sabha, given what we've seen happen as far as the state elections are concerned, and will emerge as the single largest party. The NDA, though, will not have a majority. But let me bring in Mr. S. Narayan as well. Mr. Narayan, you've heard what Manish has had to say in terms of the imperatives now as far as the government is concerned. And given the shift that we're seeing in the government discourse, the economic discourse, what would you bet will be the priorities that they would like to focus on?
I think again I go back to the Prime Minister's speech, and he says that instead of the poor always seeking for benefits from the government. He would like to see opportunities for the poor to contribute to development. He doesn't say that the subsidies will go away. He doesn't say that there will not be a safety net. But he would really like to give opportunities or make opportunities happen for developments which would reach the poor.
If I could get down to specifics, and I'll start by asking you to comment on the two specific issues that Manish Chokhani raised. One, how do you actually get private investment back? How do you deal with the situation of NPAs? There was a recent meeting the finance minister had with the Reserve Bank of India. We've heard of the possibility, or at least the idea of a bad bank, for instance, being floated by the chief economic advisor and people in the Niti Aayog. Is this going to be at least one of the top priorities that the government would now like to address? And maybe, given the victory that you've seen, out-of-the-box solutions to address the NPA crisis could be expected?
Well, one thing you have to bear in mind when it comes to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, out-of-the-box is very normal. It's not abnormal for him. Because if you really look at his entire tenure, he has come up with things after things, and that including, demonetization, which was criticized, and a lot of people built a lot of political capital believing that the demonetization will boomerang on the BJP. It hasn't. Let me build on what Mr. Chokhani said. What Manish Chokhani made a fair point in terms of the average. So if you look at it from the top end to the bottom end, what the government's role has to be seen under Prime Minister Modi to a large extent, and that's the currency people to some extent miss. He's talking of the government as an enabler. That enabler cannot be only focused to a segment of India which is doing extremely well, but it has to also lift up those who are much lower, get them out of that shackles, because then India only moves, which is what he says. If 125 crore people take a step forward, the whole country moves ahead.
Also joining us on the show, Anil Bokil, the president of Arthkanti Pratishthan, the man who's been one of the biggest supporters of demonetization, in fact had recommended it as well. The question that we're asking today, is the government more emboldened to undertake radical reforms? So let me put that question now to Mr. Bokil. Mr. Bokil, many thanks for joining us. It's been a stunning result for the BJP in the state elections. The question now is, what is this victory going to mean in terms of economic policy? There seems to have been a shift in the government's stance. So what should we realistically now expect, specifically in the context of demonetization, which you supported in a big way?
This is the thing we are expecting, and now people verdict has endorsed it. This movement, that demonetization was very much expected by people. It is a very tangible thing, and common man has welcomed it. It has seen now. Now government is now here forth. We are expecting to take a more bold decision, like rationalization of taxation, and the whole thing is now to make more and more simple. Now this is the verdict is in favor of socio-economic change, not a political. This is not a political change. This is a socio-economic change. Now people are coming forward. They are expecting something more bold and more pro-economy, economic development decisions, and it is going to happen now, because this will give a great boost to the government's courage too.
Okay, so you're saying two things. You're saying that this is a vote for socio-economic change, and you're also saying that this is a vote for more unprecedented, bold reform like we saw with demonetization. In that context then, what should we anticipate? What should we expect? What is it that you see the government now doing?
Yeah, the rationalization of taxation, what we are expecting, and since last 20 years we are expecting and we are demanding from our government that make the taxation so simple that everybody could anticipate it, could assimilate it, could make it more tangible to everyone, what I'm going to pay as a tax and how it is going to be. It's more simple and it should be more transparent too. So that is what we are expecting, and now this decision is very due, and we are expecting now the government should look after this.
Mr. Bokil, you keep talking about the rationalization of taxes, and one of your recommendations is the abolition of income tax, but that's a recommendation that the government has dismissed. In fact, the chief economic advisor very categorically stated that that's almost an absurd idea. So in that context then, any other specific ideas or recommendations that you believe the government must act on immediately? Have you had any formal or informal conversation with anyone in the government which gives you a sense on what can be expected next?
No, that was not kind of that conversation. The personal conversations are not there with any government personality. But you just see the demonetization, that was also predicted. It is unprecedented. It is not a viable thing. But it happened actually. Because the force is now in that direction. We have to take radical steps hereafter. So nobody says that income tax cannot be abolished. It can be. Certainly can be. Because it hardly contributes 16% of our total revenue, tax revenue collection. And that makes a huge escape for tax leakage and that kind of this thing. That opens a passage for it. The black money issue is very serious for our country and our economy too. The transparency and the corruption perception index, if we have to look after. So we have to go for a radical change.
So you're continuing to pitch for the abolition of the income tax, but in terms of other radical changes, banking transaction tax, that's something else that you've been pushing for. What else do you expect or would like?
So bank transaction tax is the thing what we are expecting, is the only thing. So it will make everything more clear, more transparent, more accountable. And it will give a full productive result to government revenue. In that sense.
We leave you with some of the big market voices on this election result. Thanks for watching.
The victory in UP was of a far greater dimension than people were expecting. So investors will now conclude that Mr. Modi looks highly likely to win in 2019, and that will increase expectations that he can continue to implement his agenda, which I think is basically both promoting development and what I would call digitalization. It's also, though, I think just from a political perspective, an incredible story that Prime Minister Modi took this massive risk of implementing demonetization policy only a few months before India's most important state election, and clearly that high-risk strategy has now paid off dramatically.
I wouldn't read too much into the 2019 election outcome based upon a very impressive result in UP. But for now, it's helpful for market sentiment around the political environment and on reform. But we've already had a lot of very, very good news on reform. So I think now it's about looking at the economic data as opposed to politics and reform agenda, where there's a lot of good news already priced into the market.